It's a 9.8 white pages of issue 31. I think the reason it's so valuable is because it's the first Gwen Stacy, and what with this new Spider-Verse incarnation of Spider-Gwen and the new life that has been given to the Gwen Stacy character long after her death, Gwen Stacy has a lot going on now. I'm guessing that's why this book is so valuable, but it is so valuable. And Gwen Stacy appears nowhere on the cover. There's no mention of anything having anything to do with her. You have to know. There's only one sale at 9.8 for $96,000. In the throes of Spider-Gwen mania, this sold for, I'm just going to go ahead and call it a stupid amount of money. Let's see, it was at $28,000 and it sold for Hi, and welcome to Grails to Astonish. This is going to be the second half of the first night of the ComicLink Fall Featured Auction. Closings. It was a lot of words. Here we go. Things are about to get pretty fast. We're going to go through issues 1 through 15 very quickly, and then I have to run. So I'm just going to duck out. Amazing Spider-Man #1, closing in 1 minute. 8.0, 44,000 fair market. This is a white pages copy. 15 seconds left to go, 37,000. Is it going to hit 44,000? I suspect not. I've said in my big Silver Age Keys video that I think this book should go down in value. I think it's overvalued. 40,000. 10% below fair market. And then we got the 4.5, which is very close to my 5.0. Fair market on this is 10,000 and the bidding is at 8,650. We're over 9,000 now. We are, I think, possibly 2 bids away from hitting fair market. 10 seconds left. And nope, 9,150. All right, next up is issue 5, 8.0 off-white to white pages. I like this cover. It's oddly slapstick. 3,988 is the bidding, and the book value is 3,800. So this is already above book. Probably because we got Doom coming in Avengers Doomsday very soon. Trailer's going to hit in a couple weeks. And it sold for 4,900. That is more than 20% above book. Almost 30% above book. 10 seconds left until issue 6 at 9.6 closes. Book value of that is $20,000. And the bidding's at $10,250. 16,250. So that closes almost 20% below book for a 9.6 off white to white of the, I think when you get to 9.6, the thing is you got your 9.8 collectors and then you got everybody else. 9.6 isn't quite there. That's my only explanation. And then when it's off white to white, it matters a lot at 9.6. So I think that's why it didn't go higher. Then we got issue 9. Now this one has a very high book value, much, much higher than the first Lizard. The book value at 9.6 is 54,000. Dramatically higher than the 9.6 value of issue 6. I guess people like Electro better. 16,000 is where the bidding is at. Let's see if it's moved. 16,500. I think we're gonna be very, very far from 54. If it's at 16,500 with 12 seconds left to go, it's actually neck and neck with the issue 6. So Go Collect for some reason values issue 9 way above issue 6 based on some crazy sales, but this auction does not. It's closed for $23,289. So it did go up, but still less than half the listed fair market value. Then we got a 9.6 CVA label, and yet off white to white. Tell me what you think of CVA labels when you see them. I don't know what to make of them. I understand you pay to have a little sticker put on your book saying your comic book looks nice for the grade that it's in. That's my interpretation of what it means. It seems like an odd thing to put on your book. Obviously, you're hoping to get a higher price. Does this increase the value of the book by $100, $500? Does it? Really? Really? Do we need the sticker to decide if it's a nice looking copy? 8,309 in 9.6, 10,400 fair market based on a sale from 8 years ago, but 9.4 is 3,800, 9.2 is 3,000. So I had expected it's gonna be more like 6,000 or 7,000. Nope, at 8,309, and it sold for 8,459. Then we got the last book I'm gonna cover right now, issue 15, closing in 10 seconds. At 9.4, that gives us a fair market of $16,000, and it closes for $10,519. I've seen so many of these issue 15s close below book since the movie came out. It's just dropping, and it's not done dropping. I think Kraven got done dirty because he's a great character, It's a lot of fun. I love that 6-issue run from the 80s where Kraven dies. He was great in the Spider-Man 2 game. We never got him in a Spider-Man movie. We just got the spin-off movie. This is a book I will look to pick up because I think it's undervalued. I think in the long run, Kraven's a good character, unique. He makes a great villain. I don't know that he makes a great hero, which is what they did in the movie. I never actually watched it, but it seemed like it had a lot of problems. I'm going to miss the next bunch of sales because I got to go. I'm back. Soccer practice is managed. We had a bunch of books close. I think we're most of the way done with ASMs. I got some catch up to do. 9.6 white pages of 29. 3802 closed for 47.78. Book value of 3,600. These early ASMs, they all went for 10 to 20%, mostly 20% below fair market. But we are seeing a couple that went for well above, like this Never Step on a Scorpion, the second appearance of Scorpion after issue 20, but I would say a better, more dynamic, more interesting cover than issue 20. Can somebody explain to me in the comments why 31 is so valuable? It's a 9.8 white pages of issue 31. I think the reason it's so valuable is because it's the first Gwen Stacy, and what with this new Spider-Verse incarnation of Spider-Gwen and the new life that has been given to the Gwen Stacy character long after her death. Gwen Stacy has a lot going on now. I'm guessing that's why this book is so valuable, but it is so valuable. And Gwen Stacy appears nowhere on the cover. There's no mention of anything having anything to do with her. You have to know. 31, 9.8, fair market. Ooh, sold for 96,000. There's only one sale at 9.8 for 96,000. A few years after Into the Spider-Verse and before Across the Spider-Verse. So in the throes of Spider-Gwen mania, this sold for, I'm just going to go ahead and call it a stupid amount of money. And there are 5 9.8 copies, so this was one of the 5 copies. Okay, I'm getting a little bit more why it sold for 28,000. If this was some iconic profile of Gwen Stacy on the cover, some great drawing of her on issue 31, I would better understand why this goes for so much. Let's see, it was at 28,000 and it sold for 47,555. That is tempered by seeing this $96,000 sale, but still shocking. Almost $50,000 for kind of a nothing cover. This is not Ditko's best work. This is much better work by Ditko, but it's an extremely high population book at 9.8. ComicLink's always got one of the 9.8s for sale. I think it's a better drawing, but there's almost 60 copies of this at 9.8, whereas there's only 5 of issue 31. So this sold, it was at 46.55 and it sold for 5,200. We got the last Ditko book here at 9.8, 93.50, sold for 12,850. Fair market, $20,000. Low, but still high. 9.4 white pages of issue 39. I love this cover. I've talked about it a lot. I showed my 7.0 in the previews. Let's take a look and see how the 9.4 with a CVA label sold. 9.4, $4,200 fair market, and it was going for $5,000, sold for $5,100, 20% above book. I got to make a list. I talk about my favorite Spider-Man covers all the time, but I should put it together into a list. We certainly have 39, 55, for sure on the list. I like 67 a lot. I like 64 a lot. I like 53. What else? What else? Give me your favorite Spider-Man covers. I'm curious. I like 66. I like 8 for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's just a childhood memory because I had a copy of 8. I love 3. 3's way up there. Annual 1, 3, and then of course I have 15. Off the top of my head, that's my top ASM covers right there. I just picked up this 45, which I showed off, not a 9.8. This is the 9.8, but I think my copy that I picked up is pretty close. It won't get a 9.8, but it might get a 9.0. This was bidding at 4,100, sold for 63.50. Fair market's 57.50. Just a little above book. 10%. Then we got this Kraven cover. This is 47, so this is, I think, the third Kraven. But this is really a showcase for the whole Kraven look. 9.8 white pages. Fair market value is $5,500. Bidding was at $3,100, and it sold for $4,100. This is a cover I love. Issue 48 with the Vulture. Gosh, is this the first time the Vulture had been back? We had issue 2 was Vulture, and issue 7. Did we see Vulture between issue 7 and 48? Aside from ASM Annual 1, I don't think so. Return of the Vulture in issue 48. Best Vulture cover, I'm going to say. 48 and 64. All right. I'm going to change my stance. I'm going to add 48 to that list. Downgrade 64. 48 is the best Vulture cover. 64 is the second best. $3,100 is what the 9.8 off-white to white was going for. With a fair market of $3,900, did it get to 39? It did not. 3,300. Then we got issue 50, which everybody loves, but this is only an 8.0 off-white to white. You do see these copies go higher. 2,106 is what the bidding was at. 2,300 is the fair market. I do believe we have a book going above. It did not go above. No more bids came in. 2,106, 10% below fair market. 9.6. I just listed this as one of my favorite covers. It is indeed white pages of 55, bidding at 2,311. Fair market 2,600, and it sells for 2,655. Tiny bit above book. Yeah, J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider Slayer robot suit. All right, we got this ASM 62 in 9.8 white pages, perfect copy of a Medusa cover. Fair market on this one is $2,400. Bidding was at $1,812 and it sold for $2,658. Once again, above book value. What I'm seeing here is the Ditko books that I called out as being really good investments all sold a bit below where Go Collect puts them at, but these Romita books are consistently going higher than book values. So there seems to be an increased interest right now happening, at least in this auction, for the Romita run. 64 with a Stan Lee signature on the cover in 9.8. Biddings at 26.17. Fair market is 17.50. We're already way above fair market value. Closes at 33.88. Good Lord, almost double the fair market. This needs to be adjusted. It looks low. There's much more interest in this book than the guide seems to think. 66, which is an issue I really like. I have several copies of. This is a perfect copy, 9.8 white pages. Biddings at $2,000. Fair market is $2,600. And it sells for $2,200. This one's below. I picked this copy up last year in an auction, already slabbed at 9.6. I was curious to see if it was a CPR candidate for 9.8. I never really pulled the trigger on it. Haven't cut it open yet because I'm not that confident I can get it up to 9.8. But if I could, it would sell for around $2,200. This is an off-white to white pages. This is a white pages. So I don't think I can expect to get even 2,200. I think in the unlikely event I were able to get it to 9.8, it would probably get 1,800 or 2,000 since it's not a white pages copy. Not really worth the trouble. 67, 9.8 white pages. This book is a lot more valuable, probably because there are fewer 9.8s. There are 48 9.8s of 66. It is a largely white cover that makes it easy to hide creases and imperfections. There are only 16 issue 67s because this one you can see the problems a lot more easily. That's the reason I'm going to give for why there's 1/3 the population and a fair market of $4,700. This copy was going at $2,300 and it sold for $3,300. Then we get into 68. This is where I start to lose interest in the ASM run. We got the Prowler and the Kangaroo. Not a lot of top tier new villains added. Morbius was added in issue 101, and the whole world has gone Morbius crazy, hasn't it? Have we recovered as a society yet from our obsession with Morbius? I think we have, actually. Morbius, first appearance in 9.8 white pages, a comic that there is no shortage of. There are 44 9.8 copies. Goes for $16,500, but does it really though? $86.50 was the bidding. Closed for $12,838, 20% below. The 9.8s of issue 300, we got 3 copies. They are 9.8 white pages, was at $8,050, closed for $8,050. They got actually 2 9.8 white pages. Is there any difference? This is a newsstand edition and this is a direct edition. The newsstand goes for $8,000, direct $2,300. That's a huge gap between newsstand and direct. You find really only from around 1982 to 1990 this distinction between newsstand and direct copies. There were newsstand and direct earlier, I think starting around 1979 and probably later. They still did newsstands in the 90s, but it kind of disappeared by that point. So you'll see that split where people really, in some cases, really will pay a lot more for a newsstand than direct. I don't know that I've ever seen quite that large of a gap in the sale prices between two identical apples to apples books. But this is almost 4 times the price. 9.6 white pages. Of course, this book 300 is kind of notorious with 300. Anything less than perfect, there is no tolerance for because there's plenty of perfect. 9.6, 755. This is a direct edition, 9.6 white pages, 755. So a fairly big drop there. And then we got one copy of 361 selling for 750. That still is, in my opinion, obscenely high for reasons I went into great detail on in my most overvalued books video. Then we got this Spider-Man 667. It's a variant cover. I don't usually cover variants. I just happen to know of this one variant that I've seen talked about. I know goes for a lot of money. Let me check and see. Can I find 667? So this is the regular 667 cover, which you never see at auctions. It's worth $70 in 9.8. For some reason, the Del Auto variant cover, people go crazy for. It's from 2011. It's very recent. $29,000 for a 9.8. Even $13,500 even for a 9.6. This copy is 9.8, white pages. $21,069 is the sale price. Still far below book, but for God's sake, that's still a crazy price. $3.99 was the shelf price of this book, and it just sold for $21,000 14 years later. Whew. ASM Annual 1, possibly my favorite issue in the entire run of Amazing Spider-Man. Talk about this all the time. You don't see it in high grade very often, but they got 2 in this auction, a 9.4 and a 9.0. On the 9.4, $28,899. ASM Annual 1 in 9.4, fair market is $30,000, only 11 copies, 10 in higher grade. So we had some low sales up to $10,000 in 2018, then it jumped in 2022 to $30,000, which set the fair market at $30,000. Looking at these sale prices, I would say this should not end up at $30,000, not anywhere close to it. And yet it did, $28,899. Not as high as the peak sale, but still quite high considering how far we've come down from 2022 prices. The 9.0 fair market is $8,500 and this sold for $6,533. Much farther below on this sale. They're both off white to white. I'm not sure how I feel about the sale price. $6,500, is that a good price for this? I mean, it's below what Go Collect says. I'm not sad that I didn't get this one. I'm happy with what I got. I probably just finished the Amazing Spider-Man books, and that's a good long chunk of time, so I'm gonna make one video out of that. Say goodbye for now, and then I'll be back soon with probably Avengers to Daredevil. Roundabout. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.